Welcome to this week's episode of Team and BS Draft Central. Of course, I'm Jeff Barnes along with Greg Rector and Bill Carroll. On this, the first day of the new league year, the official kickoff to NFL free agency, we bring you our mock draft 1.0s, which will start very shortly. And of course, we're going to go over the safety position tonight. But the mock drafts take so long and getting into the position when we really don't have any guests tonight. It's just mock drafts and safeties tonight. But guys, eventful weekend overall. Had to affect your mocks. I know it affected mine.
Well, no, because my mock was already in before all this started. So my mock is going to be a little bit off maybe, or I don't particularly care. But the Dallas Cowboys have acquired 7 players to begin free agency, and I don't care that they're not the big guys, the big dollar guys either. They're active in what they've done.
Yes, yeah.
They're participating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Bill?
Smart teams don't lean too heavily about, or don't let what happens in the free agency over affect what they're doing in the draft, because free agency is usually about plugging a hole.
Yep.
While the draft, if you're doing it well, is about building your team for the long term. You can still take players in the draft at positions that you've added in free agency. I double checked to make sure it's allowed, and it is. So It didn't have much of an effect, or would not have had much of an effect on my mock draft. I think the teams that are going to be drafting are still going to be drafting. The players are still going to be drafting. Like, I don't think they're going to suddenly say, oh, well, now, we fixed it. We're done. We don't need to do. I would like to remind people once again, the gentleman that hoisted the Super Bowl MVP trophy was drafted very shortly after they had taken a quarterback early in the first round.
Yep. Good
teams take good players when they can get them. And if it turns out this person can't play for you, but they're good, guess what? Somebody else will give you something for them and you can trade them. The thought that I hate people say, oh, you don't need to always get the best value. Sometimes you need to just go ahead and say, screw it and draft for need. You can do that, but that's how you end up being a bad team consistently. When you say we're going to consistently, not once or twice, but consistently draft for need, two bad things happen. One is you start to treat short-term situations with long-term solutions. That's the first thing, right? Because now you're rushing players' development because you need them to play. The second bad thing is you slowly but surely are dragging down the total talent base of your team. And you might get away with it for a little while, but it always catches up with you. You can't dine and dash with the draft, kids. The bill will always come due.
See, that's the Cowboys not taking Johnny Manziel when Jerry Jones wanted the man, but taking Zach Martin, who, of course, has retired now and will be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 5 years. And that's the opposite, of course, of what they did with Taco Charlton versus TJ Watt.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Even the reasoning for that pick doesn't make sense to me now, years later down the road.
It never made any sense.
Yeah, but nevertheless, I agree with you, Bill. Good teams, it really doesn't affect them. I will say that some teams, it affects them in a different way. Some teams, because we got a really good player at that position in free agency, we're not needy at the position. So if somebody falls to us, we'll take them, but we're not needy anymore, right? That was, I think, that's the biggest thing that you worry about with teams in the draft is the guys that we need this, because you usually take a player you shouldn't take at that pick, right? When you need it.
Right. Don't go shopping when you're hungry.
Yes. So speaking of it, let's jump right into mock draft number 1 for Mr. Bill Carroll.
Well, it's always fun to do that. Yes. So the fun thing about mock drafts is, of course, they are always going to continue to change. Everything I'm hearing indicates the Titans, either they're putting up a brilliant smoke screen about how much they like Will Levis, which they may be doing, right? We've seen brilliant smoke screens before, but everything I'm indicating is that they actually want to trade down. Now, I have not yet gotten to the point where I've started putting in trades. I will. That's probably a few weeks away. But as I hear more things, I think that pick will actually be some other team picking. But for the moment, if for some reason the Titans either can't get out of that spot or decide they really like Abdul Qadir so much that they think he's the best player available, they just take him. Bad teams can always just take the best player available. That's the good thing the good thing about being bad is that you can use everything. And then the Browns, frankly, may also be at least exploring the idea of trading down from what I'm hearing. But if they are not able to do so, I think they do go with the number one ranked quarterback in this draft class, Cam Ward. And then I'm hearing the Giants may be trying to trade up. I would advise the Giants not to do that, but whatever. The Giants never listen. But if they do stick and stay where they are, they'd be well advised to take Travis Hunter, whether or not they see him as a corner or as a wide receiver or as some combination of both. Now, I heard a lot of guard talk, but that guard talk I heard about Kelvin Banks, was not from NFL people. I got a chance to talk to some NFL people who was at the combine. They all see him as a tackle. So in case you're wondering, well, not everybody. I mean, I only talked about 5 or 6, but the 5 or 6 people that I got a chance to talk to who are with NFL football teams. Now, they're not picking at this point. I didn't talk to anybody from this particular team. This is a team that was notoriously closed-mouthed for many years anyway. You'd be wasting your time to sidle up to their people because they knew that if they did talk, they would be, disappeared into darkest Siberia or something. But I do believe that they're going to take if not this player, then a player from this position. I think they really want to build that offensive line. Once again, BPA plus Ding Dong, the Balky's dead. A lot of my Jacksonville Jaguar fans have been dancing around. I guess you can't burn general managers' jerseys, so I guess they've just been dancing around. But I think that Mason Graham, if he's still there, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody in the first 4 picks took him. But if he's still there, I think he might go there. Now, Shedeur is a player that, if you like listening to rumors, is either plummeting down the draft board, if you love rumors, or he's a guy that, once again, the Giants will take him at 3. I'm hearing an equal amount of buzz about both things. But I think that the Giants, if they don't trade up to 1, don't take a quarterback, and then Shedeur is able to go to – it's a good fit in so many ways. Once again, obviously, one of his mentors is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. It is a big market. In fact, one of the most rapidly growing television/media markets in America, for those who aren't aware. Clark County, Nevada, for the past almost 20 years straight, has been the fastest growing county in America. There's been a couple of years where they weren't number 1, but they've been in the top 3, I think, every year for the past 20. It is one of the most rapidly growing places in America. It is ripe for a superstar. They don't really have a superstar athlete. Well, I mean, they have some terrific WNBA players. They have some terrific hockey players. But no offense, those are not tier 1 sports yet in America. Now, that hopefully is in the process of changing. If Shedeur Sanders, who's already a bit of a superstar, goes there and they are good, right? It's going to be an explosion, right, of all kinds of things. Will Campbell, once again, there was a lot of guard talk, and there are some teams now. Once again, I didn't talk to everybody. I heard a couple of teams that do see him as a guard, but I think there's at least 4 or 5 teams that have him as their number 1 tackle, even over Banks. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes before Banks. It's one of those guys that's going to go early, and one's got to go not much later. Now, once again, if you love rumors, James Pierce has fallen all the way to the 3rd round, right, or lower. I don't think that's actually the case. Now, he might go lower than 8. But he's not going to fall. I don't think he's going to fall all the way out of the 1st round. Is he a person who has some peccadillos? I would bring up the life and times of Charles Haley. Now, he's not quite maybe as colorful. Of course, we later discovered that Charles Haley actually did have an actual personality disorder. But he has had some, He had a traffic stop that went left during his time in college and a few other things. And he has 9 unpaid parking tickets. There's some other smoke or whatever. But from what I've been able to ascertain from my own little amateur investigations, I'm not hearing anything that sounds like felonies. I'm not hearing anything that sounds like violence against women or stuff like that. So everything I've heard thus far, to me, doesn't sound like anything's going to push him, out of the first or even out of the top half of the first. But once again, I'm still continuing to gather information. Will Johnson is many people's number 1 corner. He's not mine, but he's a great corner. My number 1 corner is actually the next guy. Now, if the Bears, with all they've already done in the preseason, off season, whatever you want to call it, to this point, and you toss in getting Jedi Barron, now, okay, thank you, right? The Bears are actually starting to look like a football team. Then we have Josh Simmons, who might have been the first offensive lineman off the board had he been 100% healthy, but he is not. Okay, now Cowboys fans will either be enraged or thrilled, depending on how they view this prospect. Shamar Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call a mystery box prospect. Now, what is a mystery box prospect? For those who are familiar with a show called Family Guy, there is a game show where Peter Griffin has a chance to win the grand prize, and it's either a boat, a 32 or something foot, trawler with all the latest and greatest googads on it, or a mystery box. Now, here's what we know about Shamar Stewart. Yes, he has 4.5 career sacks, and I think something in the neighborhood of 60, just under 60 career tackles, and I think 40-ish career solo tackles and 20-something-ish career assists. None of those numbers are eye-popping. We stretch the imagination. The eye-popping stuff is all when you look at him. That's where your eyes pop. He is a God-chiseled and designed football-playing machine, which thus far has not been fully unlocked. Now, maybe you blame Texas A&M, which is somehow managed not to get great production out of great talent over the last few years. Maybe you blame how he was used. He was used inside, outside. They moved him around. If you can unlock all of that talent, and I talked to Shamar Stewart admitted directly when I spoke to him, I didn't really know what I was doing. Said it straight out, especially as a pass rusher. Didn't really have a plan A, let alone a plan B. If you believe he can be coached up, you might have an absolute star there. He compared himself, of all people, to Jadeveon Clowney when I asked him, who do you compare yourself to? So take that for what it's worth. Then we have, once again, another player that some people have talked about as a guard, but a lot of it, I think it's split almost evenly on a guy like Armand Mimbu. He has rare movement skills. He's powerful. He still has lots of upside in terms of talent. But he does have long arms, over 33 and a half, I think 33 and 5/8 or something inch arms, despite being a shorter tackle / guard. Even if he ends up being a guard, if he ends up being, say, a consistent Pro Bowler who's a couple of years All-Pro, you're still going to take it. But I'm hearing at least half the teams in the league see him as a tackle. Ty Warren is pretty much everyone, except some people, there's some Colston Loveland people. Most people see Warren as the number 1 tight end, mostly because of what he does after the catch. Loveland is equal to Warren in a lot of ways until the ball gets in their hands. And that's when Warren separates himself from Loveland in that he's much more dynamic and interesting after the catch. We just saw Michael Williams pro day, and meh. But there are some teams that care more or less about athletic testing than others. I definitely think he doesn't go earlier than 15, especially with his somewhat unexciting athletic testing. Ashton Genty's only here because he's a running back. A player of his talent and skill should have gone to the first 5 picks, but everyone has pretty much bought into the don't take running backs in the top 10 mantra. Almost everyone. Now, if there is a team that would defy that, there's a couple I can think of that might decide to take him that early. But I could see him going earlier, but I don't think he makes it past this point. I think at this point, if he's still there, teams say, okay, the value, the talent, we can get over the whole position thing. And though they do have running backs, one of them is essentially a part-time running back. The other one is an over age 30 power back. And whilst those guys sometimes keep going, they often age like yogurt in the sun. So just in case, Their main back, has the wheels fall off. They've got a truly special talent to replace him. Here's another one of the most fascinating prospects in the whole draft. Walter Nolan is either wildly undervalued or wildly overvalued, depending with whom you speak. I do know people that know Mr. Nolan quite well and were very instrumental in his being recruited, and say that if you've heard stuff about his work ethic and stuff about this, stuff about that, it's overblown. Is he a guy that occasionally takes plays off? Yes. He played a fair number of stats, maybe more than he should have, and he's a big dude. He's a little lighter dude now than he was during his college playing career, so maybe that will help him. But yes, he's taking the kill snap off. This is a player that, once again, a lot of people are mocking in the top 7 or 8. I love watching the tape of Techaroya McMillan. T-Mac is apparently what he likes to be called by his friends. Here's what I have also noted. He's what I call a possession plus receiver. We're a true deep threat at that size, like Julio Jones, like, the true freak shows. We'll see what his athletic testing yields, but worry a Megatron where he's got not only the size but runs 4.3 something, even low to mid 4.4s. He's gone long before this, but I don't think he is. We'll see. To me, the break point on a guy like him is somewhere between about 4.52 and 4.56. Anything less than 4.52 helps him. Anything more than 4.56 hurts him. Then we come to Colston Loveland, second tight end off the board. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are an interesting team in that Jason Light is a old school-ish general manager. He's an old player himself. I remember him as a player at Nebraska. Once again, the advantage of being old. And I think he likes, sort of like Detroit. He likes tough guys, likes meat and potato guys. They have tight ends. They have good tight ends. But I think they said the value of this player, and they don't have a lot of desperate needs. They actually have a pretty good offensive line. They could use a pass rusher. So that's the only thing I went back and forth with. Was there a pass rusher I could give to them? I thought about maybe Walker to them. Walker will probably go to them in another version of this. But they could now run a lot of high-level 12 personnel stuff, right? Because they have 2 young, dynamic tight ends who are both good pass receivers and good blockers. This would really allow them to be a very interesting and difficult to defend offense if they could add do everything young tight ends under rookie contract. Matthew Golden. So we've seen what they're building in Denver, right? Denver wants to run the football down your throat and then hit you deep shots off play action. It's kind of an old but tested and tried and true kind of football. And Sean Payton is one of the older, obviously he's not quite catching up with Pete Carroll, the youngest 70-plus-year-old man in America, maybe, but he's an older coach, right? He's, I think, 65 or will turn 65 or something like that this season. No, 62. I think he's 62. Sorry, 62. Sorry, Sean. But he's in his 60s. And they have every kind of player except this kind of player, a just pure blazer, right? Their wide receivers they have Mims, who is fast and quick, but not this fast. And of course, they have a nice mix of guys. They don't have the blow past you guy. Now they do. Nick Imamori is once again a player that will probably go earlier than he should. This is probably where he should go, but he might go earlier. If you go back to the tape, you see some good stuff, but you also see some lapses, right? He's definitely, we talk about quarterbacks who don't have touch and anticipation. They make up for it with arm strength. He's kind of like that. He's the safety version of the guy who doesn't quite understand touch and anticipation yet, but is able to just beat coverage with his arm. He sometimes takes false steps. He sometimes even goes the wrong way, but he's such a freak athlete. He's been able to get away with it. He will need to be coached up. But if there's one thing they know how to coach in Pittsburgh is secondary. They have some excellent secondary coaching. If somebody can get out of him, I think that Tomlin and that crew can. Kenneth Grant, the other D tackle. Once again, Michigan, right? But also it's kind of a need for them. They haven't had a truly disruptive interior presence for a while in San Diego. They could really use more everything on that defense. Their defense has lost some good players. Obviously, we know what's happened with Mr. Bosa, but they use some of everything. Okay, now this is in this version of my mock. I actually have 2 running backs in the first. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if there's a landing spot for him, this could well be it. The Vikings are another team that really likes to run the football. And for those who have, maybe not been paying attention to the offseason, they'll be having he's not officially a rookie, but he's basically a rookie. And I think if he is the day one starter, he will still be the youngest day one starter, even if one of the rookie quarterbacks from this class starts, because they're all older than him. He is not 22 yet, right? He's still like 21 and a half years of age. He would, if he were in this class, he would still be he'd be the youngest quarterback, I think, in this class. So he is a very young quarterback, and he didn't play that much in college. They're going to run the football. In case you're wondering, I promise you that the Vikings will be in the top 6 in rush attempts. They're going to need running backs, plural. And let's see. Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker is a guy who could go even earlier than this because he's another divide the room prospect, right? The other people will say we don't like his this, we don't like his that, but he has a lot of upside as a pass rusher. Does he get bounced around sometimes? Yes. Do you wish he were a little more, had a little more ballast, a little more sand in his pants, a little more whatever? Yeah, sure. But they can't all be Khalil Mack kids, right? We wish all the pass rushers could be Khalil Mack types, where they could be great, tremendous, pass rushers, and then also just crush people in the run game. But he's good enough. Here's a player that I absolutely love. I am a Gray Zabel fanatic. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I toyed with having my Steelers take him, which is actually the pick I would like to see them make. I think he is a future minimum of 3-time Pro Bowler. He's a guard. I don't know why it says tackle there. Well, he was a tackle in college. He's going to play guard at the next level, but he could, in an emergency, play some tackle. And now we have the first true linebacker, right? I'm actually writing an article right now about the death of the Sam linebacker. Will the last Sam linebacker in the league please turn out the lights? When I was a kid, I was watching like Ted the Mad Store Kendricks, right? Who we'll never see his type again, right? 6'7", 224 pounds, 61 sacks, 26 interceptions, 2 of them pick sixes. We'll never see that again either. But yeah, I think he still holds a record for like passes batted down in a 14-game season. I think no one's broken it in a 17-game season. Just a freak show. But the true linebacker. This guy could play Sam linebacker if there were still Sam linebackers in the NFL or being used that much. But he could play potentially any of the traditional linebacker positions. He's, I think, everyone's number 1 linebacker. And the Rams are a team that could use playmakers on defense. They're able to do basically magic on offense, right? With mostly with the exception of a couple of guys, mostly middle to later round draft picks on their offense. But on defense, they've had their most successful guys who drafted early. Aaron Charles Rodgers being the most obvious example of that. But next, Josh Connerly, another guy who could be a guard, right? I know I said about almost every one of the tackles so far. It is a shorter tackle class. Well, there's some giants, but they're going to go later, right? I mean, shout out to Hollis Pierce and the other giant kid from Belton, Anthony Belton. They're huge. But those guys are probably the right tackles. They're going to go later. But yes, Connerly, if he turns out to be a guard, he's going to be a terrific one. I think he could still play tackle. And I believe the Ravens also believe that. And then we have Luther Burden III. This is another guy who could potentially go way earlier. Now, think about the offense that the Detroit Lions could trot out. Once again, the one thing they didn't have was a blazer, right? They had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is tough as nails, an elite level route runner with tremendous hands, but 4.52, right? Which is not bad, but it's 4.52. They have a bunch of good receivers, most of whom run in that mid to low 4.5s, and they have like one guy who's like a high 4.4, right? 4.46, 4.47. they don't have that blow past you guy. Luther Burden III gives you that blow past you guy. He's terrific after the catch, and he could be an elite level return specialist if they allow him to do it. So, fun fact: I watched his high school. I'm in high school. He's was a legend in East St. Louis. Now, teams figured out not to punt to him pretty quickly, but he had 20 high school punt returns. 8 of them he returned for touchdowns. For those who don't like math, that's 40%. When you are taking 40% of your punt returns in high school back for touchdowns, that tells you what you want to know. Landon Jackson. This is a player that I originally saw as a second or third rounder. But at the combine, I heard big time buzz about him going in the first. He still might be an early second rounder. I would wait. Personally, I would wait till the second, but I could easily see him going somewhere around here. And for those who hadn't heard, Washington needs defensive playmakers. They have a tremendous offense, but boy, oh boy, they could use everything on defense. And this could be one of the steals, I believe, of the first round. Emeka Egbuka is a boringly good wide receiver. And by that, I mean, all he does is get to the right place in the field and catch the football. That's it. That's all. There's no more. He doesn't do anything extra. He's not great after the catch. He's not huge. He's not super fast. He's not going to get a bunch of endorsements. He's just gets to the right place in the field, catch the football. Now, there's still a market for that, right? And I think he's going to make a very nice living doing that. And then this is a player that I originally had a slightly higher grade on, and then he got hurt, missed virtually the whole season. And this is why he's still available. So the scratch and dent sale, right? There are certain teams that love scratch and dent sales, and those teams usually end up picking later in the draft because you don't get these players falling to you unless something's wrong. Yes, you're right, Randall. You should love that pick for Buffalo. But yes, Siobhan Revell is one of the more complete corners in this class. I believe he's a better all-around corner than some of the guys who went ahead of him. The problem, of course, is East Carolina. People don't necessarily respect the brand of East Carolina football, whether it's good football. And one of the great stadium experiences, if you haven't been to Dowdy-Ficklin, get rowdy in Dowdy at least one time before you die. And you'll thank me later. But he is a terrific football player. And if his medicals, which I've heard nothing but good news on his medicals at the combine. So if he continues to get better, he should be ready to go pretty early in his rookie season. But if he turns out to be what I think he'll be, which is the top 3 corner in this class, and you get him at pick 31, you're pretty happy. And then last but not least, Malachi Starks. Now, Malachi Starks was a guy that was probably going to go earlier than this. Probably was going to go much earlier than this. He had a ho-hum combine. I still think he's the best safety in this class. But the shiny object is Nick Emery because he's a freak. I would prefer that my Steelers, if they were going to take a safety, took Malachi Starks, but I have a feeling they may have gotten distracted. I hope I'm wrong. But that is my mock draft.
All right. It's a good start. We'll circle back to the questions on this in a little bit. But let Greg get his in, then I'll circle back with mine, and we can pick each other's brains on how we came up with these. So, Greg, you are up when here is your mock.
All right. I agree with Bill. Abdul Carter is the pick for the Tennessee Titans. I don't buy into this stuff that they're going to a quarterback. They can draft another guy in the second or third round. That's fine and dandy. I've got Travis Hunter going to Cleveland, though. And then I have Cam Ward going to the Giants. The Giants do not need to move up in this draft to get a quarterback. They just don't. Will Campbell, tackle. He is not a guard. He is a tackle, and he will be a New England Patriot. Then I have Mason Graham going to the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Ashton Genty will be the pick for the Raiders, kids. There is no doubt in my mind. Once you got Geno Smith there, Ashton Genty is just going to be the new Marshawn Lynch for Pete Carroll. That's the bottom line of all that. Tyler Warren will be the guy that helps Justin Fields in New York. And then I have Ted McMillan going to the Carolina Panthers because Bryce Young needs more targets. He needs a bigger target. He needs a guy that can go deep. Tetral McMillan is that guy. James Pierce, I've got going to the Saints. Kelvin Banks goes to the Bears. Will Johnson goes to the 49ers. And then the Dallas Cowboys, if we stay at 12, because, again, I'm so sick and tired of having to deal with Cowboys fans. I wanted Emeka Egbuka. As you said, Bill, he just does the right things at the right time. That's all that the Cowboys offense really needs. But they do need a run stopper. And yes, Joe, it is Kenneth Grant from that University of Michigan. Okay, I said it once. That's it. That's the last time I'm going to talk about that school up north that way. I've got Armand Membu going to the Dolphins.
There we go. We agree.
And Bill.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. Tim Murray has to go to the Colts.
This is the Raz King.
You're right. You're right. Yep.
Imam Wari as a 10 on the Raz. He's got to go to Mr.
He has
Ballard.
to go. No, you're right.
He has to go there.
I immediately agreed with you. When once I saw that, I was like, nope, you're right.
Then I have Mikael Williams going to the Falcons. His testing was awful and all that other jazz, but that's all fine and dandy. Jalen Walker goes out to Arizona for me. Then I have Mr. Green going to the Cincinnati Bengals. I've got Josh Simmons going to the Seahawks. And Luther Burden goes to your team there, Mr. Jeff Barnes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a nightmare scenario that is for every team in the NFC South. You've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, 21 years of experience between those two guys, and then you give them Luther Burden.
Don't forget the young man they drafted last year.
Exactly. But I just saw Luther Burden sitting there, and I'm going, what a nightmare this would be, and Baker Mayfield would just have a field day throwing to Luther Burden as well. Then I have Colston Loveland going to the Broncos. I don't care that they got Evan Ingram. They need another tight end, and Colston Loveland is that man. Then I have Bill and Will Carroll. Will, all you guys in Steel Town, you should stop whining and crying because I've got you Shadur Sanders. There you go. See, this is how simple this is. Then, of course, I have the Chargers taking Omarion Hampton. Jahdae Barron goes to the Packers. Then, of course, I have the Vikings taking Quishon Judkins because they need more running backs. Aaron Jones is a great running back, but boy, you want another solid piece, you give him Quishon Judkins. Tyler Booker, I've got going to the Houston Texans. Siobhan Revell is a Los Angeles Ram. He is just a perfect fit for the Rams. Well, Joe, we discussed this last week about Shadur Sanders, and yeah, he can drop. Benjamin Morrison joins Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens. Then I have Shamar Stewart going to the Lions. I have Malachi Starks going to Washington. Derek Harmon goes to the Bills. Then I have Josh Connerly going to the Chiefs. And finally, for Mark and Thomas, I told you guys you'd get an edge in Philadelphia. It's Nick Scarton. So there you go.
All right. Guess that leaves me to back cleanup, right? So here I go. All right. So I haven't seen a mock that doesn't have Carter going number one. I haven't seen it, and I don't blame him. All right. Not from the vibes we're getting out of Tennessee. Number two, I got Cam Ward. Okay. If you think the quarterback search ended with Kenny Pickett, you are wrong. They are still looking. Russell Wilson's flying out there now. And guess what? If Russell Wilson doesn't sign on the bottom line, they'll probably take a quarterback anyway to develop him and get him ready. But somebody's got to go. And the guy that eventually will be going will be Deshaun Watson. And trust me, they're going to throw every stone at that horse to get it to move. All right? Now, the New York Football Giants. I almost had them passing on Shedeur here and going long on Jackson Dart. However, looking at that reach and looking to see how desperate they're going to be after Aaron Rodgers passes up on them, I can see this easily being Shedeur Sanders at the pick right here. His teammate goes right behind him to New England, a team that could use both a corner and receiver. He will play both in either heavily on defense and light on offense or reverse, however they feel like using him, but they could use both. Will Campbell to Jacksonville. Okay, we know their tackles on the market right now. So I see him in Jacksonville. Ashton Janty, if there's a team that says we're taking a running back in the top 10 and we don't care what you say, it's the Raiders. Okay. Yep. In the Raiders, I can see that happening. Pete Carroll, power running game, control the clock, help my quarterback out. Ashton Janty will be his guy. Okay. Kelvin Banks will come in and continue to help that Jets offensive line and try and keep Justin Fields from being on his back. Tatoria McMillan, okay, will go to Carolina and give Bryce Young a weapon he desperately needs, a big receiver who's going to get those red zone catches, get you big catches over the middle and run from defenders. Mike Evans type without the Mike Evans vertical speed. Okay, so Shamar Stewart will add to the pass rush in New Orleans that desperately needs to get younger. Okay, Mason Graham will add to their front line in Chicago as they look to show up their run defense. Walter Nolan, all right, to San Francisco, who's been depleted on the interior of their defensive line. Michael Williamson, we just saw DeMarcus Lawrence go to Seattle. Okay, your Sam Williams is coming off a knee injury. Your other defensive end just went to New York. You're going to add to the pass rush a potential 8 to 9 sack a year kind of guy, minimum, opposite Micah Parsons, if you think about it. So I think that's what you're looking at. All right. So Will Johnson, okay, corner. Miami's been trying to find a good corner duo for several years. They might have it in Will Johnson. All right. Jalen Walker ends up in Indianapolis. Okay. We talk about another team that's been trying to plug a void ever since the Shaq Leonard move. They haven't really plugged that key linebacker role yet. They might get a chance to do it with Jalen Walker. Pierce, I haven't gone to Atlanta. Once again, another team looking to upgrade pass rush. Pierce can do that for them. Tyler Warren to Arizona. Right? They just let Ertz move on last year. This may be the guy that comes in and replaces him. Mike Green to a team that just is getting rid of their top pass rusher and just had the other one retire. They need pass rush. Mike Green adds burst to that. They're not afraid of small defensive ends. We've seen that before. Okay. Matthew Golden to a team that, once again, looking to replenish their wide receiver room. Colston Loveland, better than any tight end on the Tampa Bay roster currently. Okay. Kenneth Grant, right, comes in, helps that Denver defense up the middle. You're going to see here a lot this year about up the middle. Defensive tackles, very strong this year. Jackson Dart to Pittsburgh. Once again, another team looking for quarterback in a bad year to do it. Sometimes reach for need. This will be the need. Okay. Jahdae Barron to the Chargers. We see Asante Samuel on the market right now. All right. They got to fill a void. One of the better corners falls in their lap. Josh Simmons falls to Green Bay, a team who's still reshuffling their offensive line. Another guy falls in their lap. Guard or tackle. He can do both. Gray Zabel, another guy, guard or tackle, can do both upgrades the Minnesota line wherever he plugs in. Another team trading away linemen like they're going out of style in Houston. Well, this will help them up the middle. Tyler Booker, okay? Josh Connolly to the Rams, another team that's been upgrading their offensive line. So that's a big help. Eamon Worry, where would he fit? Oh, how about Baltimore? All right, we talk about safeties and safety help, right? We know what they like to do with the big safety that they're ready. Yeah, right. So this will allow him to let him play down. They can let this guy play over the top and help out those corners who struggled last year. Siobhan Ravel to Detroit, who's been trying to upgrade their nickel corner. Well, there you go. All right. Derek Harmon, right? We just saw Washington allow their veteran D tackle walk. Why? Because there are guys like this guy in this draft class. Emeka Ibuka, another one that could play outside, could play slot, move around the formation, allow Shakir to work exclusively in the slot if they want him to. Big time help to that receiving core. Luther Burden, why not to Kansas City? Another team that's looking to upgrade, coming off of a Super Bowl loss where they couldn't protect. But they also didn't have a lot of options too, did they? All right, so there's one more option with plenty of linemen coming up in reserve right behind them. Xavier Watts to Philadelphia. That just seems like a steal. Okay, one of the better safeties in this class going to a team where they just let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson go. They will definitely take extra talented safety help. So when I look at it, trying to look at what we've done so far today in free agency, some of the moves we've seen overall this offseason, plugging these guys in the first round to all these teams makes sense. So, Bill, I'm going to throw yours back up real quick. Okay, so
so Mike Green is not in the first round, not because of anything he did on field. He has terrific tape. Mm-hmm. He had a great Senior Bowl week, but those who already know he has serious off the field stuff.
Yep.
Not parking tickets, not a bar fight, like serious stuff. Twice, right? So when you have two instances of the kind of stuff he did, you've got to have a really, 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 really good grip on how your team's going to absorb that kind of stuff. I don't know if any team's going to take a run at him in the first. I think that in the second, he'll get considered, and he'll probably go definitely in the third if he makes it to the third. That's the only reason you don't see Mike Green in my first. There's a couple of players that like I myself am not completely sold on as first round players, to be perfectly honest. But I think, once again, this is what I think NFL teams think or feel about. Like I said, Landon Jackson being one of the ones that I wouldn't take in the first, but I think an NFL team will. The rest of them, let me see. Is anybody else said I don't see? That might be it. I think everyone else I have there, I at least see as a first round talent. Hampton, somebody might decide to wait until the second, but I could see him going in the first. The rest of them, I feel pretty strongly are first rounders. Other than Landon Jackson, who's sort of like borderline. There are some positions like the traditional linebacker position. Some people don't feel like those are first round values, even when the player is a first rounder. But we also saw where Jack Campbell went to the Lions a couple of years ago. So some teams do still value that position. But the real intrigue always is the quarterbacks, right? Will somebody move up? Will somebody move back into the first who's going to sacrifice a second rounder and maybe a future second rounder or something to get back into the first if they don't take their quarterback in their first pick in the first? I mean, that's always one of the things that we see happen or often see happen, where a team like Tennessee or a team like the Browns or a team like New York says, we don't like any of the quarterbacks that early, but we do feel like, to get that 5th-year option, if we can trade with, the Bills or whatever, somebody in the back half, and then, then can we make that happen? Let's see. What else? I mean, I think we all thought that Minnesota was going to, or most of us thought Minnesota was going to running back. I think Greg went with Quinshon Judkins. So I would love that happen. I'm a big Judkins guy. I think Judkins is I think he's a first-round talent. I don't think he goes in the first round, but I think he is a first-round talent. I think he and Henderson go early in the second, though. Let's see. But yes, if I could go back, I would definitely swap out, as desperate as they are for a tight end in Indianapolis. I would probably
just as desperate in the defensive secondary. So guess what?
I probably would swap that, and then maybe he goes instead to Denver or something. But yeah, or Denver gets Loveland and Tampa Bay gets Warren. Maybe in that scenario that happens.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I feel pretty good about these players going in that range. I don't think there's anybody wildly away from where they're likely to be selected. I have up here. Like I said, I think 3 picks either way is where most of these players will go in the actual draft.
So, Mr. Jeff.
Yeah.
Can you pull your draft up again, please?
There you go.
And there is no Shedeur Sanders in your first round.
Yes, he's at 3 of the Giants.
Yeah.
Oh, he did go to the Giants.
Yeah,
he did go to the. He went
Yes,
to the Giants.
I had back-to-back quarterbacks.
Yeah, you went with the back-to-back quarterback. Okay, that's all fine and dandy.
Yeah, no, he's there. Like I said, there were some that I looked at, and I was like, I can't believe, because I don't use a simulator. Every pick is done by me going through each team. So there's times when I'm getting to certain guys, and I'm like, wow, he's still there, and this team would really like Pierce at 15. Now, there's a huge window for Pierce in round 1. I've seen him mocked high, like Bill has him in the top 10. I've seen him as low as 22.
Yep.
So there's a huge window for Pierce. So at 15, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm shocked that I have 2 tight ends in the top 20. I'm shocked because I'm not totally sold on 2 tight ends going in the top 20 this year. I don't think we're going to see a run like anything like we saw last year of offensive players going in the top 20. I think it's going to be a lot more balanced this year. But when I look at it, when you start factoring in the offensive linemen, the skill positions, you're still going to see a lot of defensive guys getting pushed out around 1. Because the corners are going to go at one point. Once you start getting the top corners popping off, then there's going to be a couple of teams that take the safeties or certain corners that they think are going to be safeties.
Right.
I think the linebackers are going to suffer. There may only be one linebacker that comes off in round 1 because of that. The edge rushers there's going to be a run on those guys before we start to get a little dry at certain points on day 2. I'm intrigued when I was putting this together that how I had certain teams. Like I said, I can see Tampa Bay going different ways, but if Colston Loveland falls to them, they don't have a tight end comparable to Colston Loveland on their roster right now. Okay, there's a team that loves to use tight ends. They don't have anything close to that kind of talent at the position, so I don't see them passing on it. Doesn't mean that they won't. Okay, you only have Reddick for a year, so they may go pass rush there. Okay, they can go interior to help out their guys, although they've done a great job of adding D tackles, but he's only so much longer that Vita Vea can play.
Yeah. So
eventually you do have to start thinking of a replacement for him at the nose. So there's a lot of play for the Bucs at that position. So I don't think that, that's the very transparent pick for anybody right now.
There is nobody who is transparent to me outside of number 6, which is going to be Ashton Genty. That is the easiest pick this year. It is easy, and everybody else, it's going to be a mystery.
Well, at 25, if they stay there, if Houston stays at 25, they got to go offensive line. When you look at the offensive line talent,
yep,
it's going to be around in the first round.
I think both of us.
They've made at the offensive line so far, right? You've traded away Tunsil, you traded away Green. Okay, you've traded away 2 of your starting linemen. So right, so you obviously you got to go young if you're not going to bring in a veteran.
Well, and I think we both took Tyler Booker there, didn't we?
Let's see yours. Yes, we did.
Bingo.
So yeah, and we're going to go back to yours in a second, but I think that's what when you look at it. The Rams, Connolly makes sense. You know, you talk about a team.
Yep.
You know, we saw Whitworth. We know Havenstein's gotten very old and gray. Note Boom is a quality guy, but you could always upgrade that. So there's a lot going on offensive line-wise that these teams have got to go grab those guys because are they good players later on in the offensive line? Yes. Are they ready to play early? Not as much so.
Yeah. And again, this is just everybody's taking a player in this draft. Okay. So this is before any trades have happened and all this other nonsense. For me, I'm perfectly happy if the Cowboys get out of round 1. I don't care if they because I'm so sick and tired of hearing about this player has to be no. For me, if I'm stuck here at 12, I'm going to take Kenneth Grant because he is a big-time run stopper. That is what the Cowboys need. They don't need another edge. They've got Marshawn Nealon. They got Sam Williams on the edge already. They don't need an edge in round 1. So your guys, Shamar Stewart and Mikael Williams, no thank you. They don't need them. I want a big-time run stopper if I'm going to be here at 12.
Steve is asking about, Minnesota and running back. If they don't take one in the first round, I mean, Steve, I'll be honest with you, there was plenty of running back talent in round 2 for you guys. Okay, like I said, if those guys are gone, okay, right, you still have Caleb Johnson.
Yep.
They're going round 2, right?
You've got more running backs this year than you could shake a stick at.
Right. Trevor Etienne is another good guy you could pick up, especially because you're in the back end of round 2, right? So
or even it's round 3. Damian Martinez is going to go somewhere in 3 or 4. Yeah, they've got a lot of choices at that position.
Ollie Gordon, another guy that can help you guys out
somewhere in the middle rounds. Yeah, probably late day 2, early day 3.
I mean, they even the guy I sent you into our chat this afternoon, Jeff. Nate Carter from Michigan State, 5'10", 200 pounds.
Absolutely.
Dear Lord, did he ever blow up at the pro day for them today? He had a 4 time of 4.37. His vertical was 40 inches. His broad was 10.8, and he put up 23 reps of 225 on the bench. Hello. I mean, there's more running backs this year than you could shake a stick at, and it's going to be very, very deep throughout this whole draft.
Absolutely. I love that. If we had a guy up here from Michigan State, that would have been a great one to put up. If you notice, the school codes are up there, not the names, the school codes. So, people are going, what are all those letters about? That's the school codes. That's the 4-letter school codes for each school. So it's nice to have a Michigan State guy up there because that one just be missed. So, the actual word besides like Penn State is past and last.
Yeah.
Louisiana State. So, But actually, I like the fact that the Senior Bowl put that on their rosters now. You don't get the school name anymore. You get their 4-letter code now.
Right.
Yeah. So for those people that actually attend Senior Bowl and actually look for rosters, that's stuff that scouts like. All right. So, Greg, you had Shedeur falling to 21. I'm trying to see if there's anything different. You also had Pierce going top 10. You had Sport squeezing in. Yes, I can see them adding pass rush there too. That's another thing.
Yeah.
You had Starks going to Washington.
Yeah.
I think I had safety. Did I have safety going there as well? No, I had D tackle.
No. Yeah, you had a DT. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, considering what they've lost, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it was either going to be Malachi Starks or Xavier Watts that I had going for Washington, because I'm not going to send a Notre Dame kid to that hellhole called Philadelphia. Don't do that to that poor young man.
You may not, but Howie might.
Howie might. Yeah.
Right.
But again, I gave him another SEC player.
That's
he loves
true.
the SEC. So, that's who he got.
So I'm going to jump up. San Francisco, Will Johnson is one of the options I had for them. Looking at the defensive line losses they suffered, especially on the interior, I went with the interior player. I believe I gave him Nolan.
Yeah.
What inspired you to put Johnson there?
Travarius Ward's gone. I mean, if you don't have a solid secondary with what they've already lost on that team, I'm going to put the best corner out in the field that I can for them. That's why I took Johnson.
Gotcha.
And yes, there's a Colorado State wide receiver who was also going to be taken by the Indianapolis Colts, okay? Because he also measured at a 10. He's going to the Colts.
And he has really good tape too. Like,
yes,
he's
he does.
Not just a freak. He's a good player.
Yeah. As long as you rate 10, Chris Ballard is taking you. That's it.
That's the rule. You're right.
That's why Emmanuel went to the Colts. And Jalen Walker, I really like him going out to the desert.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, because I'm looking at the Niners. I mean, Lenore's still playing in the slot.
Yep.
But then you look at it, it's a lot of inexperience there at the corner. I mean, Isaac Yadom.
Yep.
We know about him. Renato Green, So, a lot of youth and inexperience, or underachieving in certain cases by certain guys.
And again, all these people who are talking about Will Johnson not running a 40 is good. No. Watch the tape. Will Johnson in 2023 was a very good cornerback. So what? He had an injury this year. He's phenomenal. It's the same reason why I've got Benjamin Morrison going to the Ravens. Because unlike your pick, Kyle Hamilton plays the safety position, and Ardarius Washington is the other safety now. And when we get to safeties, I'm going to discuss the height of safeties yet again when we do our picks. Because all these people who talk about a height and weight restriction is BS. I don't care what position it is, what type of athlete you like. Kavontae Turpin is the best kick returner in football. He just got a 3-year contract for it. Is he a big guy? No, he's not.
No.
I
can see, especially with them letting, and the reason why I put safety there, because I can see them going with the 3 safety model. And that's one of the reasons why. Because I was tempted to put a corner there.
Yeah, which I did.
I can see the Ravens going 3 safeties.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But again,
especially with the running backs in their division.
Yeah, but again, I just think Morrison would be a better fit for the Ravens than the safety.
Well, he's perfect for it. You're going to play zone. You're going to play
bingo. That's why I went with Morrison there. There he is. He's going to Baltimore because he fits their zone, right? So I think I've got a pretty good block of offense and defense happening here in round 1.
Any concerns for either of you about Mike Green's rather serious off-field stuff?
No, because he addressed it, and it was taken care of. The teams that I've heard are still in on Mike Green being a first round edge player. He's a first rounder. So
I think it'll scare some teams. I really do.
But again, we both had him going Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They don't care what anybody else thinks. That's
right. You're right about that. Yeah.
The reason why I say it is because we talked about desperation, right? You look at a team you just lost both of your. Well, you're about to lose both of your starting pass rushers because they're trading the other one. Okay. You're going to be desperate to upgrade the position. I don't see them doing it today in free agency where they're going to be out there active. They're going to add draft picks and load up on young guys. Looking at how the board was falling, if that's your top pass rusher, if you believe that, and he's one of the few guys that took the questions head on about it, addressed it, he addressed the situation at Virginia. Was it Virginia Tech? Sorry. He addressed it. And not only I'm pretty sure he addressed it.
You're right the first time. It was UVA.
UVA.
Yeah. So he not only addressed it with the teams, but he addressed it with the media. Yep. Okay, and that's one of the things where it impressed me the most.
He didn't back away from that question. He just went straight for the answer too. Yeah. There was no hesitation.
And that's something you don't normally see, especially during the draft process where you're very guarded about your stock and how you answer. And he addressed it head on in front of the media. All right. So
which is unlike his former guy who went to the same school, Josh Ball, who ended up being taken by the Cowboys. He did not address the media whatsoever about his issues.
No.
He did it in the interview, and that's it.
So I think when you look at it, you're seeing a maturity. He's grown up. You're seeing some conciliatory behavior. You're seeing growth as an individual. So I think teams that really like him on the field, that are going to believe that you put him in a bigger situation where he's going to have a lot more pressure on him, a lot more people looking to take advantage of him in those situations, that he's going to handle himself differently. So there are going to be teams that are still going to go, not in the first round. We'll do it in round 2. We'll even do it in round 3 if he's hanging around there, but not round 1.
Yeah.
Those teams will be there. But there are going to be some teams that go, you know what, we need a player like that. He seems to have grown up. We'll take the chance on him, And if there's one that might do it, it's Cincinnati.
Which is why we both put him there.
The other one that might do it is in the top 10. So I don't see him going top 10.
No.
If he's hanging around at Cincinnati, I wouldn't be surprised he comes off.
He's got top 10 tape and top 10 production. But yeah. So I guess the scratch and dent discount essentially is what gets him to 17.
Yep. And I think Jahdae Barron going to the Packers makes a lot of sense for me, because
it does.
Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes are both gone.
Yep.
And it's funny. When Stokes was on the board a couple of years ago and they took him, people were like, why didn't you like the pick? And I said why I didn't like the pick.
Yep.
I didn't think he was the player that, that a lot of people thought he was. And, now
that was another rose-colored pick from the SEC.
Yeah. And when you watch the film, I didn't see special. I saw a good player.
Yeah.
I didn't see special, so when I thought there were better corners in that class. And here we are 4 years later, he's not there. Now,
Yep.
Jaire's been around a lot longer, so he's gotten to the second and third contract point where they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to go younger. But
Well, I mean, when you've got 3 years straight of being injured as well, I mean, hey.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's what factors into the new contract, right? We ain't paying you to be hurt. You know, the best availability, the best ability is availability.
Availability, you got it.
You know, when you're getting into those second and third contracts, that's one of the biggest circles on the requirements is availability. So then it turns back to, can you still do what you did to earn that kind of money? You know, and that's the reason why, you know, you talk about the Cowboys. That's the reason why I believe Tank Lawrence is in Seattle.
Yep.
Okay, because plain and simple, availability.
And again, because he injured his foot.
He's Lisfranc this time. But
Yeah,
that's the third foot injury.
Yep, exactly. So I was shocked actually when Seattle gave him a 3-year deal. I was like, 3 years?
Yeah, he had one his rookie year.
Yeah,
he had one. What was it? 3 years after that.
3 years after that, and then this last year.
Yeah. So there's 3 times he's gone in for foot surgery.
Yeah. But hey, Seattle, enjoy having DeMarcus Lawrence because when he is out there, he will help you stop your run. He will also put pressure onto a court. He doesn't get the sacks. Don't ever think he's going to be a sack master, but he will put pressure onto quarterbacks.
Right. I still think he's good for 8 or 9 sacks a year if he plays the game season.
If he actually has the opportunity to be the third down guy, yeah.
Well, a good thing for him is they pass a lot more than they used to. So you know, you get those opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, we have the opportunity to give our sponsors a chance to speak. So we're going to give them a chance to come back and talk some safeties after this. We'll be right back with more Draft Central.
Streetwear is not dead. The next wave of black fashion comes out of the Bronx, New York. Rich Kid Clothing, picking up where FUBU, Rockaware, and Kyle Kanai left off. Rich Kid is for the next generation of Get Fly fashion heads. Use promo code MELLOW23 for 15% off your next order. And for orders over $100, there is free shipping. Again, use promo code MELLOW23 for 15% off your next order.
Draft Central is looking for an official sponsor. As the official sponsor of Draft Central, you get product placement in every episode, commercial advertising, and your logo on all Draft Central merch. Contact us at info@TeamMBS Media for more information.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the wild.
We are back. So I'm going to fix our graphic here real quick before we throw this up. because I just realized something was wrong with Bill. But in the meantime, Greg, your top 5 safeties are ready to go. So,
All right.
Walk us through it.
All right. Yes, I have a Notre Dame guy listed finally. Okay. All right. Xavier Watts. I mean, 7 interceptions last year, 5 interceptions this past season. He's just been the best safety in the country the last 2 years. Bottom line, Amanuwari gets up there because of his testing. Now I'm going to talk about some height. Andrew Makuba, Texas. He may not be that big. He's what, 5'9", I believe. But boy, can this guy ever hit people. He tackles very, very nicely, and he can cover anybody. Kevin Winston from Penn State, I just loved, and then I got Malachi Starks as my 5th.
Very good. Bill, yours are coming up momentito. Sorry, I just realized one of your couple of your logos are off, so I didn't want to put them up there.
Okay.
Put the wrong school. So we had to fix that. So it's being very slow. But
Watts is a good player. Didn't quite make it as high on my ratings, but I think that he's in a system that fits him perfectly. I don't know if he'll be in his perfect situation, but if he is, where they sort of funnel everything and he just sort of has to read and react, he'll be fine. He can suffer a little bit if he's ever asked to actually, man up. That's not his best thing, but he reads and sees things so well and floats and finds things well. I just worry.
And he will hit you if you're running that football as well. He will destroy you.
I don't have a problem. All the guys that are in the top 5, or most of the top 5, are all guys who can bring it. There's no non-tackling safeties at the top of anybody's board this year. They're all guys who are participants. There's no pacifists amongst the group. So that's one thing I like. I think that Starks is a true do-everything safety, right? He's athletic enough, though he's not a freak. He's athletic enough that you can ask him to man up against slot corners, and he can handle it just fine. He's strong enough, though he's not huge, but he's strong enough and has enough power, in his hands and upper body to ward off tight ends and keep them from. There we go. There's Malachi Starks, Georgia. And then the freak show, the guy who looks like a H-back / move tight end, Nick Imamori, South Carolina. And yes, obviously the testing pushed him up. Here's where I'm going to be different from everybody. I fell in love with this guy on tape, and then he went and had a great combine on top of it. So I actually became a minister of the Sankarite Church. And for those who are seeking to learn and be exposed to the good news of Jonas Sanker, the Gospels of Sanker, I am there to preach them. He is another guy who will flat out strike you, has really good range, complete either strong safety or free safety, can even do a little bit of hybrid linebacker stuff. Super smart player also. So his combination of size, speed, agility, and intelligence, I couldn't move him down any further. I like Xavier Watts. I think he's a little schemey, like a little more dependent scheme-wise than the guys ahead of him. And then Winston is pretty much a box E safety. Not that he can't get away from the line of scrimmage, but the closer he is to the line of scrimmage, the better he is. So the first 3 guys are, I think, sort of scheme agnostic. Watts is a really good football player, but I think he is a guy that needs to be a true deep middle safety, right? I mean, your true center fielder is the best way to use him. So he's a little less versatile in my mind. And then Winston is an old school box safety who can do a little bit of stuff away from line scrimmage, but is more comfortable very close to line scrimmage.
If we had your tie system in place that you were so fond of before, Bill, Sanker would have been tied with Malachi Starks for me. He was my 6. He's my 6.
I got you.
Well, I'm going to say this. I like both of you guys' lists, honestly. I don't see anything wrong with them. Mine is slightly different. I have a lot of the same guys, and we don't all have the same order, but we all have one guy here or there that is not on the other guy's list.
Yes.
There's a guy that's not on anybody's top 5 so far that I like a lot, and I think that he is highly underrated in this class. We talk about Winston being a box safety. This guy is a bigger version of Winston, in my opinion. I'll throw mine up and we'll talk about it.
Yep. I knew it was going to be Luther.
You know, I like Lathan Ransom's film.
Yeah.
And we talk about it. Box safety. Can he play over the top? Yeah. Do I trust him to be over the top all the time? No. But I think he's a guy that's going to be able to cover tight ends. He's going to be able to drop in the zones, help out in the running game. You can play him as your star. You can play him in the, in your sub package as a linebacker.
Yep.
You could do so much with Lathan Ransom, and I think their defensive coordinators are going to see his skill set and love to use him on defense. So I think he, and he's a bigger guy than Winston, who, like we said, you're going to play close to the line of scrimmage. You got to do with the thumping, and I think that's going to be the one hard part for Winston is he going to be the whole. But one of the things I see is with certain safeties. Last year for me it was Bullard. I loved Bullard's tape. I thought he was going to be great. People weren't as there were people that had other people ahead of Bullard, and he came into the league and took it by storm. Same thing with Wiggins. When we were talking about the corners last year, I loved Nate Wiggins a lot last year coming out of Clemson.
Right.
And goes to Baltimore. He was their best corner. I know they had veterans at him.
No offense to Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah.
Oh,
and Humphrey, I loved Marlon Humphrey coming out of Bama, but he is not the same player that he was.
No, he's lost a step.
Yeah. And I think that we watching it with Nate Wiggins, he was their most reliable cover man. Did he get you a couple of holding penalties here and there? Yes. But when you talk about staying in phase, he was the most consistent one of the three.
Yep.
So when I look at Lathan Ransom and look at all these, listen, even in Worry, we saw the testing numbers. We see that he's a genetic freak. I think when it comes down to it, there are still certain parts of his game I want to see improve.
Oh yeah,
better eye discipline at times because he gets caught. He gets caught on a lot of play action. Malachi Starks, love his film, which is why he's at the top. Watts, definitely free safety. Something that's a lost art. We don't have a real true free safety anymore, right? We always compare to Ed Reeves and those guys that, you put him up top, there is no throwing deep because that dude is back there. And I think if you get Watts to refine every part of his game as far as anticipating route structure, being able to, because he can, anything coming forward, he can pick off. I think it's when there's times where they're sending multiple routes and he's got to get that angle deep is where his weakness is at. So if he can clean that up, he's going to be a true free safety that you're going to have a hard time with. He really is. The early days of Earl
Thomas. Earl Thomas.
Thank you. When he was playing the free safety in the Legion of Boom, you didn't throw deep where Earl Thomas was, right? And now, I think Watts can be that kind of cover guy if he just cleans up that the ball skills on the deep balls. Like I said, anything in front of him, he's going to cut it off and get to. I don't have a problem with that. Or he'll come up and hit it. I have no problem with that. When you overload them vertical, you can get them every once in a while. But like I said, my only problem with Winston is you're going to be a box safety. And trust me, that's not an easy life. I tried it when I was a corner. At 5'9" and change, it is not fun when you got to thump with the big boys and deal with some of those big boys coming directly at you. On the corner, when they're pulling, you can deal with it. But when up inside in their area, around the box, it's a different story. So
Right.
Doing that at the NFL level is a bit different. But overall, that's my top 5.
Yep.
All right. So the safety class doesn't stop at 5. So we're going to dig deeper into the safety class. So let's talk about it. I'm going to go back over here because I have my list of safeties here. You've mentioned Sanker, so we already got him mentioned. Let's go through a bunch of Makuba's on your list. I like Makuba too, just didn't make my top 5.
Yeah,
RJ Mickens is another safety.
My 6, right? Seeing Ray Mickens Jr. up close made me feel very, very old when I talked to him.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, that was a tough moment for me. I got to talk to him. I, asked him about, obviously how much he and his father talked about, playing the position, and which his father seemingly yesterday in my mind had been playing the position. But yeah, talk to Ray Mickens Jr. He's another one of those guys who's a no frills kind of football player. There's nothing that sort of screams at you when you watch him, but he's just, expected what you expect, a smart, good football player who's does the right things and does them the right way most of the time.
What about
the other Notre Dame safety, right? Notre Dame had more than one safety.
Yes.
They have another safety in this class, and I don't think he's going to go, day 1 or day 2, but he could be a day 3 guy. I think that there's an NFL team that's going to look at him late in the draft and say, worst case scenario, we're getting a guy with super high character who's going to be great on special teams, and we'll never have to worry about him a single second that he's on our roster because we know he's a high quality person. We know that he's been well coached. We know he's going to do the right things for the right reasons at the right time, the right way. Jordan Clark is another sort of, I don't want to say ho-hum, but like sometimes when a player doesn't do anything other than what they're supposed to do, even if they do it very well, we can sometimes get a little bit bored with them. But Jordan Clark to me is a player that you can set and forget. My comparison for him is Ryan Clark, right? Who was another sort of ho-hum safety. The exciting guy was Troy Polamalu. The boring guy was Ryan Clark. But having the boring guy allows the exciting guy to do the exciting guy things because you have to have the guy you can trust.
That's why Xavier was so effective this year.
Right. Thank you. Exactly. Right. Because you can only have that if you have the boring guy also. A guy who's played both corner and safety, and some people think he's going to play some nickel corner in his next iteration at the NFL level, is Seyi Oladipo from Boise State. Was recruited originally as a corner, moved over to free safety. One of those sort of tweener types, 5'10" and a half or so, about 201 pounds, can hit enough, not a blow you up person. Guys don't turn to mist when he hits them, but he gets people to the ground. And once again, still has those corner safety, corner coverage skills, even at safety. So there's things to like about him. Once again, a player that probably will go a little later, maybe mid to late day 3 kind of guy. But I think he lands on somebody's roster, especially, we'll see what happens at his pro day. He didn't get invited to the combine, but I think that he's going to test, especially as a former corner, I'm expecting him to test reasonably well. So say he's somewhere in the low to mid 4.5s is probably what I'm assuming. And if he is out there, I think somebody will take a shot on him.
What about Billy Bowman Jr.?
Well, what is Billy Bowman Jr.? And I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, Like, I really like him on tape, but he really plays more like a miniature linebacker than he does like an actual defensive back. So if you say to yourself, I can get him to play like a real safety, like an actual safety, then that's one thing. Because maybe he can. Maybe he can be an actual for real safety. He's a stocky little somebody, though. I'll give him that. He's a powerful little dude.
Yep.
I don't, once again, we talked about being close to line of scrimmage. The further he's away from the line of scrimmage, the less I like his tape.
Yeah.
So I really like him within about 9 yards of the line of scrimmage. And he has decent ball skills. He can catch the ball, he gets his hands on the ball. But like in actual coverage, you know what I mean? Like other than just dropping to a spot, there's some things I don't love. You know what I mean? Like he's a little stiffish in coverage and doesn't always see certain things. Like he sees it well, once again, as you said, when it's all in front of him. But when he has to turn and go places, sometimes the angles aren't exactly the cleanest or the most efficient.
Yep.
So I'd have to be talked into him as a real safety. Now, if you want to talk me into him as a situational player, special teams demon, dime backer guys, like, yeah, all day, baby. I will, middle of the sixth round, I will bang the table for him. But as a traditional safety, I'd have to be really, really convinced. I have to see more than I've seen so far.
Yeah, Zach Wolchuk and Nick Harris keep talking about Billy Bowman because he's a Dallas area kid. And it just, no, guys, just because he's from Dallas doesn't mean he's going to be that good. I'm sorry. Again, like you said, Bill, he is a special teamer to me, and he's a situational safety.
I can see him getting the Divine Diablo treatment. He comes in as a safety, and then they turn him into a linebacker.
But again,
because Divine Diablo is a 227-pound dude coming out.
That's right.
He was a much bigger dude.
Billy Bowman's 192.
Right.
So,
that's the difference. You got
that's why I've got Billy Bowman as a special teams guy. I mean, he just doesn't fill the role that you want a safety to play, traditional safety, and he's a very good special teamer though. Yeah. He's very good on special teams.
If you like Billy Bowman and you realize you don't want to draft Billy Bowman, if you'd like a even slightly smaller but cheaper version of him, try Alakai Gilman from Stanford or from Utah by way of Stanford. He's another one.
You said his first name.
He's another one of those not quite big enough players. Came in at 5'8" and 7/8 on 195 pounds at the College Gridiron Showcase, and he's never going to be a full-time starter on defense, but he's going to come in situations. He's going to blow people up on special teams, and you will not have to spend a draft pick on him. You may have to spend a draft pick on Billy Bowman, and I don't know if you're going to get that much more out of him, quite frankly.
Yep. And the other safety from a gentleman that we all had on our list is Jalen Reed.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Who, I mean, that guy's very versatile. Very versatile.
Yep. He's in my top 10.
Yep.
Didn't quite make I think he's my 8. I think he's my safety 8.
And for all of those people who are wondering, Shiloh Sanders, he did run his own 40. It was a decent time. Shiloh is also 25 years old.
Yep.
He is not going to be anything to me other than a 7th round pick and or a UDFA. And if he is a UDFA, I'm telling you, Jerry and Steven will be calling Shiloh Sanders immediately. I'm telling you, because he's from the area. They do want Shiloh. So there you go. There's your Sanders brothers content for the day.
I'll give you one other guy who brings some of that former corner to safety kind of ball skills and coverage ability. Jonathan Edwards from Tulane.
Yep.
He and Ranshaw at one point were partners, and then Edwards got kicked inside to safety. If you are not a Caleb Ranshaw person, once again, I am, of course, an actual ordained minister in the Sankarite Church. I am only a parishioner when it comes to the Church of Ranshaw. But Edwards came in, like I said, originally as a big corner. He's 6 feet and 3/8, 203 pounds. And he's still a guy who, in a zone-heavy team, could probably still play corner. But he is one of the better covering safeties in this draft class. And I would urge you, if you haven't checked him out, to check him out. Tulane did a lot of interesting things in their defense because of having both he and Ranshaw back there. I think Edwards is a late day 3 guy who's going to be a pleasant surprise for whichever team brings him in.
Well, you know who I was impressed with at the combine? And we're talking mid-majors, Max and Hook, Toledo.
Oh, yes.
Toledo.
Good old Max and Hook. By way of Pitt, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
When one of those guys that transferred down, but you talk about it 4.55 on the 40, which surprised me. I didn't expect him to time that fast.
And did well across the board. In everything he was asked to do. Yeah,
he's one of those guys. I wouldn't be surprised. You hear that name called day 3. You're coming to us. Not the most special tape, but right. You can see there's a player there that has some potential. It's just a matter of how high a ceiling is it. Is it just a special teamer? Is it a backup? Is it a guy that can be a very cheap starter for you until you get a special player at the position? We're going to find out, but
I think his ceiling is Quentin Michael-ish, for those who remember Quentin Michael. Speaking of quote-unquote mid-majors. I'll give you, since we're talking quote-unquote mid-majors or group of 4.5 or whatever it is now, programs, Trevion Thomas from Arkansas State is another guy that I like.
Yes.
And I think he finds his way onto an NFL roster and sticks around for a while, whether it be as a reserve or, as you said, maybe claws his way into a starting lineup one day. Worst case scenario, he's going to be in that 46 to 53 range on a roster for 4 or 5 years. But I could see him outperforming, getting past that point. And like I said, making somebody realize, oh, this guy might be a starter.
I'll give you another guy from Colorado State, Jack Howell.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, because he's got a lot of snaps under his belt already here, and he trusts his eyes very, very nicely. Yep. He's aggressive to come up and put his body into traffic. He does a good job of getting his head around in time when playing with his back to the line of scrimmage as well, which is something that safeties need to understand. So I do like Jack Howell quite a bit as well.
Yep. The only question about Howell is actual athletic upside, like how good an athlete is he actually.
But again, he's going to be a late day 3 guy. That's
He makes up for a lot of it because he has really good anticipation and sees things quickly. Yeah. My guess is he's probably like a 4.61 guy, which is fine if you're as instinctive as he is.
So
he actually did a 4.52, just so you know.
Oh, that's a big win for him. That's a big win for him. Well done, Jack.
I want to ask you guys about it, and a little closer to home for you, Greg, because he's a Navy guy. Do we see Ryan Lane in a camp somewhere?
I would love to. I think he does probably get a UDFA. Yep,
agreed. Did we ever get an update to the memo about deferred service commitments? Because the old one had expired, and then I don't. Now, once again, maybe you've heard something I haven't. I don't remember there being a new policy provision being implemented since the last one expired.
I I thought that, the last time President Trump was in office, he allowed it to expire on purpose. He wanted those guys to finish their commitment. However, when I talked to certain service academy gentlemen in the last year or two, in the last 2 draft cycles, they said they were grandfathered in. So I don't know how they're doing this. That's one of the things that's still a mystery to me, whether they're making them stick to the commitment, whether they're not. We've seen a couple of guys. Last year, the Air Force kid came out and it didn't have to, if he made it to camp, he didn't have to go. So it's a couple of years ago, we were fighting over the kid from Navy, trying to make sure he can come to Tampa because invite him. So it's really, it seems to be a case to case kind of thing the way I'm seeing it. And I don't know.
So there was a new armed forces waiver December the 14th, 2024.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So
that's what's currently in place then.
Yep.
Well, good. I hope that they are able, because I think it's a net plus for the service academies and for America, heck, to have somebody who's saying, I am going to fulfill my service commitment, but this I only have a very short window to be able to do.
Yeah.
And it is and it helps the service academies, right, to attract more high quality athletes.
Yeah.
If it's now proven that you don't necessarily have to sacrifice your NFL dream in order to be able to also play service academy football.
And you do sacrifice it because you're not going to see any more of the Roger Starbacks who get to go serve their commitment and then come back and play, or the Chad Hennings of the world.
Right.
Not with the new analytics crowd who says you're too old at 25 to be a rookie. So yeah.
And it was actually that current office holder who directed the Pentagon to revise a policy that permitted athletes to postpone their mandatory service to pursue professional sports immediately after graduating from military academies. So they get to now request the waiver to delay their active service obligation and pursue professional sports opportunities right after graduation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Well, like I said, I'm pulling for those young men for several reasons, not the least of which is, like I said, I think it is a net plus for the service academies and for our nation as a whole because of what a great example these young people. I mean, we always talk about how the community comes to embrace certain players. If you are ever going to embrace anybody in your community, embrace a service academy athlete.
It's the Go Navy and the Air Force, right? Go Navy and the Air Force. Those are the two. What's this other place that you talk about? I don't get that. That is a horrible place. That West Point just is horrifying.
I will admit they have a very nice press box. I've been there several times. It's very nice.
West Point? Yeah.
West Point, yeah.
You've been to Meach State? Okay, Meach.
A lot roomier than UCF's boxes. They're getting those expanded, so it won't be as cozy at UCF's games when you sit there like this when a big national opponent comes to town. Those are the games I try not to hang out.
That's
why I didn't go to the Colorado.
I think there's a corner that went to Army this year that I think could also get a UDFA.
Oh yeah, yep, you're right. Especially if he tests well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what his numbers are going to be like because, of course, obviously they don't get to go to the combine and all that other stuff. But I think there was
too.
Yep.
Lucas Scott, guard.
Lucas Scott. Yeah.
He'll probably need to put on a little weight just because of the lifestyle and the offense that he's coming from does not permit people to walk around at 311 or whatever pounds because uniform, right? The actual uniform standards, fitness standards, because they don't make special exceptions to the APFT for offensive linemen. So that 2 mile run and all this stuff he's got to get through, he has to get through, at a weight that allows him to pass.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he loses his scholarship to go to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the people are going to go, well, it's the service academies. Well, there is a former service academy member that just got a Super Bowl ring with the Philadelphia Eagles named Brett Toth.
That's right.
Who was a prospect. I remember watching him at Senior Bowl. Right, we talked about him. He was very raw, yes, but he had the size, he had the athletic ability.
Yep.
You had to work with him. Here he was winning a championship with the Eagles. So they do stick around from time to time, folks. Don't think that just because they're a service academy player that they don't have a chance in the NFL. You'd be surprised.
Yep. And Makuba, by the way, is from Nigeria, so he's eligible for the international player as well.
That's true.
Not that he's going to end up on the practice squad, mind you, but he is eligible to be an international player.
Theoretically eligible. That's true.
Yeah.
Trust me, that'll be the quickest poach of anybody's practice squad if he ever ended up.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You're not going to be able to slip him past anyone.
He's mine now. He's all mine.
Well, we are back next week.
We are.
And we have fun stuff coming up for you folks. Because next week is our last position group of the season, quarterbacks. So we're going to talk about the quarterbacks next week. We do have a guest. We're trying to get a quarterback guest. I'm still trying to solidify that. But we will have a safety as well. Ty Trin from Villanova will be joining us. So hopefully we'll have more than one guest next week. We'll sort that out. But nevertheless, we are back next week talking quarterbacks. We're going to have some guests on. Continue to lead you to the path that is the NFL draft. But your first mocks are in. We're going to get that out to Team MBS Media so they can circulate that on the website and all that good stuff. So we're going to make sure we get that out there. So make sure you're back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We will be here with bells on to keep you informed. For Greg, for Bill, and for myself, thanks for watching. We will see you next week.
Next week.